He is one of the most talented, most versatile broadcasters in the game today. It is the great Brian Custer, Showtime Boxing, Fox Sports, SiriusXM NBA, among many other platforms, including his podcast, The Last Stand with Brian Custer, which I was checking out last night, Brian, and you have some awesome content on there. And it's even gone to a TV show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we've worked really hard to deliver great content to people, and obviously, was very happy that some networks loved it and wanted to make it a television show. And so, yeah, we're seen in like over 100 million homes as well.
Absolutely love it. And so we're going to talk about the podcast. We're also going to look at your career, what makes you inspiring. I'm Brian Fenley, a national anchor at Fox Sports Radio. And as I begin here, Brian, I noticed that one of your guests, you had Evander Holyfield, and he was talking about that Mike Tyson fight. I wanted to know what that was like having that discussion.
Yeah, Evander was very adamant that he wanted a third fight. And I asked him why. You basically dominated him in both fights, and he said, "Look, I've been working out, I've been staying in shape, and if this guy's going to continue to fight these exhibitions, stop messing around." The only guy who really has a name and that would make people want to see the fight is me. Because of our history, the biting of the ear, things of that nature, and he's right. I mean, it sells itself. So he's adamant that that he wants that fight. It sounds like Mike has come around and wants it as well. And trust me, there will be millions that will watch it.
I was going to ask you, what is your estimation that this will take place?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, right now it's about what platform. I think last time Mike did it, he did it on that Triller platform. He then came out to say that they're not working together anymore. That he wants to use his own vehicle. So now it's just about finding a platform to air the fight. Is he going to go to another app and try to get it on, or is he going to go to one of the networks, or whether it be a Showtime or somebody like that, to try to get this fight on? So I think that's what they're working on now, is just trying to find a vehicle to air the fight.
Where were you when Showtime called you and said, "Hey, Brian, we want to hire you"?
Truthfully,
Yeah.
the real story. I was working in New York City at a sports network called SNY, which airs. It was partly owned by the Mets. They air Mets, Jets type programming, and so I was there. And one day I was sitting at my desk, and I got a phone call, and it was the executive producer of Showtime Championship Boxing. And he said, "I just want to let you know that I'm in town. I live in, at the time he lived in Vegas, but his family lives here in New York. I'm in town." And he says, "I'm watching a program on SNY called Broadway Boxing, and I love your fight calls." And
Wow.
he said, "I would really love to hire you, like right now." And I want to say this may have been 2009-ish, 10-ish, somewhere around there. And I was still under contract at SNY, and at SNY they were exclusive. So in other words, you couldn't work for another network. And I went to them to ask if they would allow me, not out of my contract, but if they would just allow me to do fights for Showtime. And the answer was no. And so I had to basically fulfill my contract, which I had another couple of years on it. And once I fulfilled that contract, yeah, I have to give the guy, David Dinkins Jr. was the man who called me, and I have to give him. He said, "Listen, when your deal is up, I will find a place for you." And he was right. Once my deal was up after a couple of years, he found a place for me, and the rest is history.
Why do you think the way you broadcast fits so well for the sport of boxing? Your style, your flair, your panache.
I just think I'm authentic. I mean, what you see on the air is what you get. I don't put on any airs. I'm not this way on camera, this way off camera. I'm the same. on camera. And I think, guys and people understand I have a passion for the sport. I love the sport. I love what it's about. It's a metaphor of life. I mean, basically it's the theater of life. I mean, when you're inside that ring, it's just you, and you're the one. You can't really rely on anyone else. It's up to you to make the adjustments and to fight your way. And that's what life is about. Sometimes you get knocked down, but can you get back up and finish the fight? And so I love everything that the sport brings and is about. And I try to portray that on air. And I think people realize that, the kids say real recognizes real. And so probably that's why.
Brian Custer is with us. Showtime, Fox Sports, Last Stand podcast, SiriusXM NBA. The list goes on. I'm Brian Fenley, an anchor at Fox Sports Radio. As far as getting hit and coming back up, I feel like that's in a way to show your battle with prostate cancer, and the fact that came the diagnosis and you felt like you were knocked down, but it didn't deter you. You fought it off, and now you use your platform as a vehicle to advocate the need to get testing, the need to get out there and make sure that you erase the stigma that comes around with a man's ego and not getting checked. So my question for you, Brian, is how much did your family's love help you get through those days in which you were diagnosed, and then the preceding moments until you had the surgery and you're clear now?
Well, it was everything. I mean, let's be honest. It was everything. It was what drove me. It was really the support that I needed, the motivation that I needed to get through that. I mean, when, I don't, people, I've told the story a number of times, but I don't know if people understand the gravity of what, for me as a young man, at the time I was basically just 42 years old when I got diagnosed. And, I had never really had surgery at all in my life. I've always been an athletic guy, played basketball, football, everything, never had surgery, never injured. And, for him to say, you have cancer, it is very aggressive. In his words, the doctor said, look, it's not fucking around.
Yeah.
And I got to get you in surgery like now. And I told him, I said, I'd never have surgery in my life. Can we do something else? He said, oh, absolutely. We could probably try something else. We could try radiation. And he said, but at the rate and as aggressive as yours is, you'll probably be dead within a year. And, look, that nearly knocked me off my feet. And all I could think about at that time was, I have 3 boys. The youngest at that time was 4 years old. Will I see them graduate from high school? Will I even see them ever get married? Will I ever, see them smile again? And see my wife. So to me, that's what motivated me. And I knew I had to fight. I didn't want my life to be cut short. And I knew I was in a fight, and that's kind of how I went about it. And again, that goes to the sport and what the sport's about. You get knocked down, sure, I'll take the standing 8 count, but I'm gonna get back up, and I'm gonna keep fighting. And so obviously it was all about my family, my wife, my boys, especially, was the main motivation for me to, number one, get healthy. And then I promised myself, once I get healthy, that I am going to use my pulpit and every being in me to get out the message that all men need to get checked for this, and at least get a physical. If anything else, just get a physical once a year, so that you can be around for your loved ones.
Yeah, you had too much to live for. Too many people needed you in their lives. That fighting aspect helped you through. So what was it like post-surgery? The tears of joy came knowing that positivity was on the horizon, that you were not going anywhere, and you were going to be with that family of yours.
Yeah, well, it wasn't, I would love to say it was great. After surgery, felt great. Everything was great. Everything was good. It wasn't like that. I mean, it never goes to script, so to speak. And so had surgery, which was painful because you have drains. I had drains both on the side of my stomach, one on the bottom of my stomach. So I had drains coming out of me. You had a catheter for like a week, which was the devil. So it was just nothing but pain. And, again, I remember the doc telling me that I was going to have to come to see him every 3 months for checkups. And he said, generally, after surgery and things of that nature, things go well. You have a 3-month checkup. And then if things continue to go well, you have a 6-month. And then after that, you can probably, just like any other person, just come once a year. And I felt like that was going to be what was going to happen for me. But unfortunately, my cancer was so aggressive that, even now and still, I still go every 4 months.
Sure.
And I want to say maybe after the first year and a half, after going every 3 months, everything was all well and good. But then all of a sudden the numbers started to rise again. And again, that's why I think that cancer, that disease, plays with you mentally, and you have to be mentally tough, because you think you've fought it and you're all clear. And then here you go, a year and a half, 2 years later, all of a sudden the numbers are gone back up. And you know what? We got it. We thought we got your prostate out and everything was good, but there may have been some things that trickled out. And so now we got to do some other things to try to get that. And that messed with me mentally. But I had to do a lot of high grade radiation. I think I did 32 bouts of that. But I'll say this, B, I never missed a day of work. A lot of people didn't even know that I was going through it. And only one of my bosses at Showtime knew. Listen, there were days where we would do a fight. We would rehearse. I'd go in the bathroom, throw up, come back out, wash up, come back out like nothing happened. Because, that light and camera was on, you got to perform. And let's be honest, everybody who's watching the fight, they want to be entertained. They want to be informed. They don't want me to come on and say, well, I'm not really feeling well. I had radiation treatment just yesterday, flew in here to Vegas. And it's really gotten me down, and I don't feel like I can talk a lot today. No, you got to be on. And so there were many days like that. We were calling basketball games for Fox. I didn't even let Fox know what was going on, because I just felt like I'm going to get through it. And that was just the mental part of it that I wanted, I felt like I needed to do to get back and get healthy. And I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I didn't, and, I know it may sound, now in retrospect, it sounds stupid to say, but, there was a part of me that was fearful that if the network knew, all of a sudden it's come back, is he going to be okay? Should we resign him? Is this going to be something that's going to plague him for a while? So, that was another reason why I kind of kept it to myself. And I figured I got to fight through it.
Yeah, those are valid concerns. And so you've been physically tested and battle tested mentally as well. And with that said, you are doing so much to keep your body healthy. Like, there's nothing you haven't done. Eating right, you're working out. And I want to talk to you about this. You are a black belt, if I'm not mistaken, in Taekwondo. Yeah. What prompted you to do that?
Well, I've always loved the art. As a child, I loved martial arts. I was like a huge Bruce Lee fan as a kid. And, unfortunately, I'll never forget this. I was 8 years old, and I begged my mother to take me to a karate studio. And so we went to a dojo, and she walked in, we watched this and that. And I remember the instructor came over, told her the price, and we walked out. My mother was like, yo, we can't afford it. And I'm not even going to act like we can afford it. And no, you're not going to do it. And so I was 8 years old. And I just remember, man, it had to be about a good, now, oh, heck, I want to say it's been a good 12 years ago. I told myself, man, before I was like, before I even turned 40, I'm going to start taking martial arts, because I wanted to do it as a kid. We couldn't afford it. And it's something I wanted to do for me. And I just went in and I found a place, and it started practicing, and I found a really good school. And I didn't know, the dedication that it took. I mean, because it took me about a good, I'd say five to almost 6 years to become a black belt. And this is at a school where I'm going all the time. He was very, he loves the art. He wants you to love the art, and he's only going to test you when he feels like you're ready. So there weren't like a whole series of tests like you get now. Now they just give away belts. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? But he only tested you, when he felt like you were ready. So a lot of times you may only test it once a year to go to the next level. So it took me about a good 6 years to become a black belt. And then once you become a black belt, you can't test again for another 2 years. And so it took me another 2 years to become a second degree. And I felt like at once I had become a second degree some years, about 3 years ago, I was like, man, I'm good. Because again, you can't test again for another couple of years. And so I would go, kind of like every now and then. And I don't know, I just, for some reason, maybe it was the pandemic. We started doing classes through Zoom. And I'll be honest with you, I had only been going maybe once a month, twice a month. But during the pandemic, it was like, no one's doing anything anyway. And our instructor said, well, I'm going to do classes through Zoom. So I just kind of got back into it. And now he was like, look, it's time. It's time for you to start testing, test for your third degree. And so now I'm obviously we can only do a 25 to 50% capacity in the dojo, but yeah, I've been back into it, training really hard, and I'm going to test for my third degree later this year.
What kind of healing personally do you find when you are doing Taekwondo and you had to work yourself up to being a black belt?
Here's the thing, Brian. I don't know if people could understand that. You asked me about family. Family was very important to me to get through what I had to get through. But I'll give it, the other half of it probably was martial arts. And because when you are a black belt, you have gone through so much mentally. If you've gone to a really good school, the whole test is more of a test mentally than it is physical. Sure, they'll get down and say, give me 100 push-ups, give me 100 sit-ups. You're doing all these jumps, but they're doing it and they're not giving you a rest. They're making you do it. And some may look at it as if, man, that physically, I don't know if I could do that, but it's more of a test here mentally because they want to see if you're going to quit. And they will always tell you a martial artist will never quit. And it is like one of the things about true art of Taekwondo is having that indomitable spirit inside of you, that no matter what happens to you, that you are going to give your very best, whether it is, having to break a cylinder block with your hand here. Again, it's mental. If you're going to use your mass and come through it, it's not physical, it's mental. It's more mental. And that's what helped me because, I just remember maybe a couple of days after surgery, I was at home. My instructor came to the house to check on me to see how I was doing. And he brought with him 2-pound little dumbbells.
Wow.
And I was sitting on the couch and we had a great talk. He was just asking, how are you doing? Da, da, da. And he said, by the way, I'm going to leave these with you. And he said, I want you to just sit on that couch, to arm curl these dumbbells. And then I want you to hold them and then stand up, sit back down, hold them, stand up, just get back down. And he said, you're just doing this to keep the muscles firing. You are a martial artist. You can get through this. Your body will snap back, but you have to mentally train it to snap back. And I promise you, you will snap back quicker than anyone else. And he was right. I'll be honest with you. It's basically what I did every day. As I sat there with these drains and everything else on me, I just sat there with 2-pound weights, arm curled them, and then I would stand up and sit back down like little squats with these weights. So, I mean, obviously I couldn't use heavy weight because of everything that was healing and the stitches and everything that I had, but he was right. I mean, that helped my body snap back. I was back at work, and I think I had surgery in mid-August. I was back to work in like the very, I think like September 9th.
Wow.
That's how quickly I got right back to. Now, it probably wasn't the best thing to do. I will admit that. But I just felt mentally I was strong enough, and I wanted to show people I'm back. I'm going to beat this. And I think a lot of it had to do with just being mentally tough.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And all of those factors that you were talking about led to your road to recovery. Before all of that happened, you spoke about being tested. What were the tests you were confronted with as a child that you had to endure that made you who you are today?
Well, I mean, I think, it is, being proud of who you are. My my natural father died 3 months before I was born in a car accident. So my mother at the time was like 6 months pregnant with me. They were in a car. He fell asleep. Car went off the interstate. And he, you know, uh, you know, for some reason, God took him away. He broke his neck. He died. My mother had broken arm, broken leg. And, for almost, I wouldn't say about 3-4 days, I never moved. They were scared that she was going to lose me. And that was probably the reason why they never told her for at least 3-4 days that my father had died. They didn't want to startle her because they were concerned about her losing me. So, even before birth, I had challenges. And so I've been a fighter all my life. Growing up with a single parent and me, my brother, that was hard. You go to school and other people are talking about their family, talking about their father and talking about their this. I never knew my father at the time. So, she didn't get remarried until I was like almost 8, 9. So, for a while, not having a father figure. So it was my uncles and people like that I had to look up to get that fatherly advice and guidance from. So there was a lot to overcome. But, listen, I know there are a lot of people that have had stories that were probably a lot worse than mine. But it was just always been a fight. And I've always felt like I've had to fight for everything that I've accomplished or to get things that I've wanted. But, it's made me who I am today. It's made me appreciate life. It's made me appreciate being a father because, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't, even as a youngster, I never got the opportunity to say dad. So I couldn't wait to be a father. When one of my kids could call me dad. So to me, it's like one of the ultimate accomplishments, being a father and hearing my kids say dad every day. Because as a child, I never got that opportunity to do that. But yeah, I mean, I just think that there've been a lot of things that I had to endure as a youngster that maybe other people hadn't had to endure, but it's made me who I am today.
What's the biggest point you want to get across to your 3 kids as a dad?
Well, I always tell them, I tell them all the time, be a leader. Don't be a follower. My youngster, I take him to school every day and I always, I hold his hand before he goes, drop him off in the car. And I always tell him, be your best self today. And I really, that's one of the things I always tell these guys all the time. Listen, you may not be the smartest person, but your attitude will take you a long way in life. How you treat people will take you a long way in life, and the relationships you develop will take you a long way in life. I think someone, told me a long time ago, and I tell them this all the time, that, sometimes it's not your aptitude, but your attitude that determines your altitude. And so I try to impress upon that to my boys all the time to be a good person. There's nothing to me that is to me the biggest compliment is when people come to me and they say, "Hey, I saw your son," or "Man, I really like him." I mean, that's like the biggest compliment to me as a parent, to know that when they leave here, they know that they're representing me and their mother, and I always tell them, like, listen, one of the best things have given you is your name, and hopefully you will wear it with pride and do it well with your actions.
That's very powerful. Brian Custer is with us. I'm Brian Fenley. Transitioning to some more of your TV work and your experiences in that realm, I saw on Instagram you were part of the Fox College Football Seminar, and I think you were playing golf at Terranea, and they had all the big personalities you included there, Gus Johnson and Sam Rosen, you name it. I'm curious to know, who was the best golfer out of that group?
Yeah, so Brando is good. Brando's really good. He's a lefty like me too, so he was giving me tips. So Timmy B was really good. I mean, Gus is a really good golfer. Gus joined us like 3 holes in, and was like, yeah, I forgot about the tea time. And hey, can I use your club? I don't even have my clubs. And use one of our guys. I think it was maybe Sam Rosen's club, hit it and just knocked it straight. So I would say probably out of the crew that we had, it was probably Brando and Gus, 1 and 2 there. Probably the best golfers. Absolutely.
What's it like doing football games with Robert Smith?
Love it. Rob's a great guy, Ohio native like myself. And so I I remember, even as a youngster, him at Ohio State and that, and it's wild that our lives now circle back with each other and we work together, but really, really good guy, man. And, he's overcome some challenges and I respect that. I mean, he tells people all the time that he had a drinking problem. And I think he's now 7-8 years sober now, and how it affected his life. And he uses his platform to advocate for that. So I love it though. He's just a genuine good guy, great father. And it's really, really enjoyable because we have a lot of Ohio talks when we're not on the air about just different things that were going on in Columbus back in the day and the people at Ohio State. And so I really enjoy him, and he's been a great partner.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, one of your first TV stints in your career was in Columbus, if I'm not mistaken, or one of those experiences. And speaking of good people, genuine people, you've been able to work with Sarah Kustok, who has done basketball games with you and other opportunities within the role of Fox. Who wins one-on-one between you and her on the basketball court?
Man, that's a great question. Here's the thing. Kus will probably tell you this because I love her. I mean, I can genuinely say I love Sarah Kustok. Sweet, knowledgeable, but a really good, genuine person. We did a game, and I think she worked sideline for us. Might have been in Ames, Iowa State. We stayed at, I want to say a Holiday Inn somewhere near Iowa, near Ames, and they had an outdoor court. And by the time it was a 7:30 kick. So it was like 8:30 our time, Eastern time. So by the time we got back to the hotel, it was like after midnight, and they had an outdoor court. And so she looked at her, I looked at her, she looked at me, and we were like, I'm gonna go change. I'm gonna go change. I think we're gonna shoot. Yeah, the guy at the desk gave us the basketball, and we sat out in the out there and we shot to over 1 a.m. That's a great question. I think, listen, I'd have to play some defense because she can shoot it, but I think this is what I would do. I would try to get it, and I'm going straight to the paint. I'm just going to use the body and body her and use the whatever advantage I have. That's what I'm going to use to beat Sarah Kustok.
Well, the question is, Brian, is she going to be calling fouls? Because I know it's pickup ball here, but how much are you going to be able to get away with as far as your physicality until you get called for the charging foul?
Look, she's from Chi-Town, so no blood, no foul. You know what I mean? We're going to play real pickup rule games. No blood, no foul. She's a Chi-Town girl, so she's tough. Yeah, so I'm just going to try to go into the paint, and I'm not even going to stay on the outside. I'm getting it. I'm going straight to the paint and just trying to use my body mass on her and go straight inside game on Coos. But it would be enjoyable because let me tell you something. We shot it and we were having a great shooting competition, and she is competitive. I mean, we were out there long after 1 o'clock in the morning before we said, okay, I guess we're going to wrap it up.
Well, I hope Sarah gets an opportunity to watch this clip because I want to hear what she thinks about this and how she thinks that she can beat you. This would be a fun thing on social media, I think, to get that banter going.
Yeah. Hey, she's in the DePaul Hall of Fame. So, listen, she's up here when you talk about ballers. But it would be really enjoyable because we would talk a lot of stuff to one another. I know she's highly competitive, but what a genuinely great person that I would fight anybody if they had anything negative to say about Sarah Kustok.
I think a lot of people would say the same thing about you and how genuine you are. and what a great spirit you are. My final question for you, Brian Custer is with us. I'm Brian Fenley. In this business, as you know, better than anyone, there is such a grind. There's that constant, like, what am I going to do next? Who am I going to work for? It's just this never-ending cycle in our mind. With where you are in your career, how much peace are you with the grind as far as where you are? Not saying that you would ever get complacent, because that's not part of your DNA, but where you're comfortable with where you are, in the sense that you allow yourself not to get totally caught up in what's next, but just happy in the moment.
Yeah, for me, it is always. I think had I not been diagnosed, I think with cancer, I might have been able, I would probably be always looking for that next opportunity. Um, but once you get diagnosed with something like that, it always brings life back into reality to say, okay, you know what? Sometimes you need to just sit back and enjoy the moment, enjoy where you are in life and what you've done. And that's not to say that you're complacent, because trust me,
Exactly.
there are many more things that I want to do. When I look at the NBA, and that, you look at all the number of teams, the 30 teams, and you can count on one hand, the number of people of color who call those games play by play voices and call those games for those teams, to me is a shame. And sure, I would like to have an opportunity to either be a voice of one of those NBA teams and call games. When you look at the NFL, and that the NFL 78% Black, and you can put on maybe 3 fingers, 2 fingers, the number of guys of color who call NFL games. Yeah, sure, those opportunities that I think I want and deserve. But I think now I'm at a point where I'm certainly happy where I am. I think I've accomplished a lot. Am I satisfied? No, but at least I'm at a point in my life where I can sit back and say, "Hey, job well done." If this is the end. Whereas I think before I would always be grinding, like, no, I gotta continue to achieve. I gotta continue to achieve. I got more that I want to do. Now I can sit back and enjoy it. I mean, like you say, I have different seasons now, so I can, here we are coming up. Big Three is going to come back, get the opportunity to do that. Then we'll roll into college football and get the opportunity to do that. And then roll right into college basketball, get the opportunity to do that. Meanwhile, boxing is all year round. So generally every month there's a fight. I get the opportunity to do that. Every Monday, Tuesday, I get the opportunity to do SiriusXM NBA radio. So who's got it better than me? And
Yeah.
I'm now at a point in my life where I'm like, I love this. I love what I'm doing. And I love America, that I get paid to do what I love, and that's to talk sports.
Well, and you've worked so hard for this, which probably makes it that much more special. And being such a great guy, you said you worked for SiriusXM NBA, and I mentioned that in the intro. And so I did tell you that was going to be my last question. But yesterday, I had Howard Beck on, and it was really fun having a conversation with him, looking at his career. And I've noticed that you guys sometimes will work the same show together.
Yep.
What is that dynamic like here as we finish up on the podcast?
I like Howard, man. Howard is, I mean, listen, he's covered the league for years, and he's opinionated. We have a great time. I mean, Sarah Kustok, I've done a number of shows with Kus. So whether it's Howard Beck or Mitch Lawrence, or obviously some of the NBA guys we have, but Howard's great because he has that like dry, subtle humor.
He does.
And somewhat sarcastic too, that I enjoy. And he's a Brooklyn guy, so you can put him on the spot and he'll respond to anything. He's another really enjoyable guy that I feel fortunate to work with.
Yeah, I put him on the spot and I asked him what player in the league has a style that fits his writing style. And he came up with Marcus Smart. So I thought that was a fascinating analogy on his part. Brian,
I can see that. I can see that.
You can see that. There you go. So it's a good assessment. Brian Custer with Fox Sports, Showtime, SiriusXM NBA. The Big Three, his Last Stand podcast. Everybody go check that out. It's all over YouTube. It's all over Twitter. The Last Stand podcast with Brian Custer. I'm Brian Fenley, and anchored Fox Sports Radio. Brian, this has been fun, man. I can't wait for you to get out to the West Coast so we get to meet, man. It would be great.
Oh, hey, it's a date. I know that now that the country is starting to open up somewhat, they did say that we're going to start doing some fights in LA. And so, hey, I'm looking forward to it. Have you out to a fight, and we can have a beer, mask up, but we can have a beer together. I look forward to that.